to order the Columbus City Council meeting for October 9th, 2019. Was supposed to start at 7, now it's 7:20, so we'll talk real fast. The first order of business will be to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Our first order of business tonight is letter B, the consent agenda. Would somebody make a motion for the approval?
Move to approve consent agenda number 3 through 8 to include resolution 1926.
26.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. The next, letter C, our second item will be a presentation from Dr. Steve Massey, the superintendent of Forest Lake Schools. I believe we have a handout. Looks like this.
Mr. Mayor, I'm also add he's a Columbus resident.
Oh, there you go. That makes it more special yet.
There we go. Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to not do so much a presentation, but to give you some information regarding a project that we have within the school district, and we're hoping throughout the communities we serve as a school district. But first of all, Elizabeth, thank you for the nod. I am a Columbus resident. My wife teaches at Columbus Elementary just up the road. Our 3 boys went through Columbus and through the school district. We've lived in the community for a long time. Just a quick sidebar, we have about 370 students up at Columbus Elementary. We made significant improvements to the school 3 summers ago, and if you haven't toured the school, you can certainly give Mr. Fox, the principal up there, a call at any time to take a tour, and I'd be happy to meet you there as well for a tour. In addition to our 370 students, we have about 25 students in our 3-year-old and 4-year-old preschool program as well. And I must say that we love enrollment. And whenever you're having conversations around residential development, we get excited as a school district. Anything you can do to bring residents to the community and students to our schools is a good thing for us. We know as a school district, perhaps you know as well as a community, that we're more diverse today as a school community than we were 10 years ago. We're more diverse as a community, school community today than we were 5 years ago, and it's fair to say that we'll be more diverse in the next 5 to 10 years. Because of that, and in light of that, we know as a school district, and I would argue as the 12 different communities we serve as a school district, that there's much to learn and grow as we prepare to meet the needs of the kids that we serve every single day in our schools. So we are working with the YMCA and have developed and will be running a learning series that we're titling Everyone Belongs. And it's an opportunity to learn, but also engage in conversation with staff and residents of our school district and throughout our community. The Everyone Belongs project, as I said, is a series of 3 learning sessions. The first one, October 29th, 6 p.m. in the high school, Forest Lake High School cafeteria. It holds 450 people. And I know that because I did lunch duty there as a high school principal for 14 years. It holds a lot of people. We're hoping, quite honestly, to fill the cafeteria with people engaged in this conversation. First topic will be cultural bias. Second topic on November 12th will be dimensions of diversity. And the third topic, cultural lens, on November 19th, all at 6 p.m. And I bring this to you hoping that you as a council would be able to, if your schedule would permit, to join us in this conversation. Perhaps an extension and an invitation by way of your leadership to other staff in the city, and certainly by way of your communication residents throughout the community as well. That's what I have on the project, and I would certainly take any questions you might have.
Anyone with questions? No. Comments?
I mean, I'll just say, I participated in, I think, a similar program that was put on by the Y at the university on the unconscious bias, and it was actually excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, I would highly
Similar
recommend.
topic.
It's
Was
very,
that
very
The
good.
Minneapolis YMCA? So Hetty Walls
Yep.
and Steve, I forget his last name from there, Hetty will actually be facilitating these conversations along with folks in the district.
It's really well done.
Thank you.
Anything else to add?
No, that's it. I can appreciate your time schedule tonight, and I'll certainly honor that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We're down to item number 10, the Planning Commission report. Is someone here from the Planning Commission? And if so, please come to the front.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, the October 2nd, 2019 Planning Commission meeting had 4 public hearing and discussions scheduled. The first one was for the freeway mini storage at 14474 West Freeway Drive. It was a request to consider a CUP amendment reviewing the request for replacement of existing gravel surface areas with bituminous surfacing. The purpose of the project was to replace existing gravel drive lanes currently surrounding the outdoor gravel storage areas on the north 400-foot of Lot 1, Block 3. The paving area is approximately 62,322 square feet. Mike Jordan, the property owner, explained that the reason for the request was ease of maintenance and to prevent erosion. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the CUP amendment and forwarded it to the City Council for 10/9/2019. The second PH public hearing was regarding
Let's wait there a minute. Does anyone have any questions for the Planning Commission? Or any statements you want to make to them? And did you look in your packets? Have you all seen the maps and the diagrams, et cetera? And if so, does someone want to make a motion to approve it or deny it before we move on?
I'll move to approve based on adopting the findings of facts 1 through 11 in the planner staff report dated 10/4/19, the conditional use amendment application at 14474 West Freeway Drive to construct the improvements consistent with the approved application materials dated August 16th, 2019 and September 3rd, 2019, subject to planners report conditions 1 through 14, with number 14 condition to notify the City of Columbus upon completion of the proposed paving project and the submittal of an updated site plan showing the number of parking spaces, 400 in the northerly lot area and 232 in the southerly 300 feet, and the area showing the variance setback for the area along West Freeway Drive. That is the longest motion in the world.
Is there a second? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then the motion carries. All right, Barb, go on to the next one, please.
Okay, the second public hearing was regarding the Columbus Ordinance, Chapter 7A Text Amendment. The draft allows the Community Retail District, the Light Industrial District, Commercial Showroom District, Commercial/Industrial District, and the Mixed-Use Residential Commercial Districts to become eligible for the PUD conditional use. The biggest change will be the removal of all standards for the suburban residential to make space for the mixed-use district conditions. According to Dean Johnson, it's essentially a housekeeping amendment. The Planning Commission recommended approval for the amendment to Chapter 7A PUD to include these zoning districts.
All right, everyone, please look, pages 29 through 32. I think most of us were at your meeting, so we got to hear a lot of discussion. And has anyone anything they'd like to add or change before we call for a vote? If not, would someone like to make the motion?
Motion to approve the amendment of Chapter 7A Plan Unit Development to include all commercial industrial zone districts to the city council as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Barb?
Okay, the third public hearing was for a CUP for a PUD application for Viking Industrial at 9203 Lake Drive. The owners, Tom Norton and William Norton, are seeking to expand their fastener tools, equipment, and safety product resale stores. They were drawn to the Columbus area for its growth potential and proximity to the 35 split. William Norton feels that the Lake Drive location will become a hub to connect their businesses in Duluth and the St. Paul and Vadnais Heights locations. He explained that they want to provide service to the large volume of small contractors who use 35 who are drawn to their stores to get supplies before heading to the Twin Cities. He estimates that 90% of the traffic to their stores is pickups and vans. When Ron asked about employment opportunities, William said they will use current employees to operate the stores as the position requires a certain level of competency. The hours will be 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. as of now, Monday through Friday. The location will require a right-in, right-out access. Ron asked if their business was like Fastenal, and Williams said yes, and also similar to Granger's. I worked at a property management company, and I'm familiar with Granger's. Granger's, Park, Gopher, Capital Supply, and Day Appliance are all distribution centers for the trade businesses and contractors. The business I worked for 30 years had accounts at all of them. The bulk of the business is usually done through established accounts and invoices rather than cash and carry. The size of your account determines the price you'll pay for the merchandise. They all allow the public to buy, but usually at a retail price. The planning commissioners, members were very concerned that the location of the business creates a difficult and possibly dangerous traffic situation. Customers leaving the business can't assess 35 effectively because they can't turn left. With 90% of the vehicles being pickups and vans, we think they will attempt to cross the 35-mile-an-hour through lane to get into the left turn lane at Zurich. The Planning Commission approved the application for the PUD and forwarded it to the council with our concerns. And we really think this is something that should have been taken care of before we were asked to make a decision. And, okay. I guess that's it for that one.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, the applicant is in the audience.
Would you like to come up to the table, please? And then state your name and address for the record.
The whole game. No, I'm fine.
Good evening. I'm William Norton. I'm the owner and president of Viking Industrial Center.
Okay.
Thomas Norton, the son of William, and work at Viking.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. I'm Aaron Waller with RJ Ryan Construction, 1100 Mendota Heights Road, Mendota Heights.
Will you pull all your mics closer, just so it records good? Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome.
Elizabeth?
You know, I think there's, at the Planning Commission, they had a discussion, and you heard the discussion as you were there and presented during the public hearing. And I think coming out of the Planning Commission meeting, there were some concerns about access. And I think we've discussed the right in, right out, the traffic light, and the need for future development. And I think the city planner outlined the condition where we would look into that in the future. But I think hearing from some of the council members between the Planning Commission and council meeting, they have some concerns about access, and they feel it's necessary that we resolve some of those access issues more upfront than waiting later. So I think the format here is that we would look at short-term plans to look at the short term and what issues that we can resolve in the short term, then look at long-term. And while we're looking at long-term, making sure that the way your building is being built, the way that your parking lot is faced, all take that into consideration, our long-term plans. And in order to do that, I think that we would talk about tonight perhaps having a meeting in the next few weeks in order to determine that, so that when you're looking at your planning, that you aren't planning for something that 5 years down the road, you're saying, well, if I only know that you were going to put that access there, I wouldn't have faced the building this way, or I wouldn't have made this addition. So I'll turn it over to the mayor and council members, because I think they have also some questions for you. But knowing that the foremost question in our minds at this point is access, as the Planning Commission identified. And secondly, it was not mentioned at the Planning Commission, but I do think that we have to have a neighborhood meeting with adjacent property owners, because I think that there are some encroachment issues, and I think that would be a good format to educate everyone and figure out a plan to come up with so that it's viable for everyone. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the council.
I'm going to make a comment as well. Mr. Mayor and Council, as you think about access and how you'd like this site to be addressed, both on an interim basis and a long-term basis, I would just remind you of our discussions about roadway connections and development agreements and special assessments and the like, because this is the time to lay that on the table. If there's going to be an improvement, even if it's just a stub improvement, a short street that's later a longer street, we would want to make sure that that is included in a development agreement for the property. So just wanted to put that on the table as well.
Thank you. Gentlemen, so we know that the county has agreed or okayed the right-in and right-out into your future parking lot. And you're aware of the stoplights right there,
Yes, sir.
and how we need another light that they don't give away, and we need to stub in that street in the future.
We understand.
That would allow the people coming out of well, let's back up. So you would have semi-loads of deliveries,
Correct.
and when they come out of there, they can only take a right out. So that means they have to go down to Lino Lakes before they can legally turn around anywhere. They can try to sneak across the median. They can try to sneak around Camp 3 Road. And as we thought about it, since the Planning Commission meeting, we want to see what we can do to avoid the hazards of all of that. And also your customers coming out of there can only take a right out. A pickup truck can hit the lights at Zurich, go down Zurich, cut a U-turn and come back. Or they can just come up to the light, hook a U-turn to get back towards 35. And as we digested everything we heard at the Planning Commission meeting, we think we need more discussion on that with you. We know you're anxious to start, everybody is. And we talked about short-term and long-term, what it's going to be. So if you have to have the right in, right out for this year, next year, or 2 years or something, but we have to decide what the city's going to do and how we can help you set up in advance so that when that fourth leg of the stoplight across 97 goes into place, it gets paid for, it gets built, it gets used, and the safety issue of everybody cutting U-turns right in the middle of the busiest street in town doesn't happen. So that's where we're coming from to start with.
Understood.
And everybody's got questions, so fasten your seatbelts.
May I make a couple of
Certainly.
comments?
Yep.
If this has anything to do with where we have the driveway, if you will, on the plat now, we don't care where it is. So, but I understand, I'm getting the sense, it's the lot itself. There's no place on that entire lot where the driveway would come out that would not present a hazard, is what I'm hearing.
Correct.
The second point, you kind of painted a picture that this was going to turn into some international airport hub. I'm exaggerating, but we have a lot of customers, that is true. But most of our business, well, we want the store and the office there, that is true. But most of our business is from our sales reps who are on the road. The whole point of being where we would like the location is so they can hit 35E and 35W and cover the rest of the Twin Cities or head up north. So our entire customer base is not going to be swarming into that particular, coming around the roundabout and then making the left or making the right or whatever like that. But having said that, let's get this right. Let's figure out what we need to do.
All right. Let me continue a little bit, everyone. So how many semi-loads of nuts, bolts, and hard hats do you expect in a day?
Answer, Tom, you too.
During a day, we typically get half a dozen. It could be 2, it could be 12. So,
In a 24-hour period, roughly?
well, in a 24-hour period, yeah, we're only open for, business hours. It'd be 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. or so.
Good. All right, so we have that fact on the table. Between 2 and a dozen times, somebody's coming out of there to go somewhere.
This may not be particularly relevant, but we were at the previous meeting,
Yep.
and somebody was asking, what is our product line or what do we do? And I was looking around the room. I walked out. That's our first aid kit on the wall back there.
Yep.
You're one of our customers.
Thank you for having us covered. All right, who else would like to start with questions or
I
suggestions?
actually have a question. Elizabeth, when you and I spoke earlier, if I understood you correctly, you said that there wouldn't be the ability to do a U-turn at the light, even if you were like in a pickup truck or a car, because the shoulder's not wide enough. Is that correct? So they would actually have to go down to Zurich and go turn around like in Running Aces?
Yes, when we talked earlier, I did not know whether the turning radius at the light you would be able to do a U-turn at that light. And we would have to talk to Anoka County whether or not that traffic movement could happen or whether they actually needed to widen the shoulder at the location in order to make a U-turn.
Okay, so that, I think, besides the semi trucks, I think that's important too, because those are just regular cars. And we should be able to get them turned in the next direction in a safe way.
Do the engineers know in the room if there's turning radius? I don't know if there is.
I'm just looking at an aerial. It'd be tough to make a U-turn
Yeah, that's what I thought.
with a truck, pickup or a vehicle.
So we'd have to engage the county in that conversation again.
We would.
Okay.
And what are the options with the county? They would add a turn lane?
Add to
Widen
the
it.
shoulder, right?
Yeah, they'd have, hard to see on this map, but they'd have to widen the shoulder over here. So if you came out of here and you tried to come down to the light and make a U-turn, you'd have to widen some shoulder on the south side.
All right. Anyone else has more to add?
How many, again, I'm not talking from an experienced point of view, but how many vehicles are there that we do not allow on the no-haul routes? So it would be some of these trucks that are going in there that are not semis, but they're bigger than cars and pickups and that sort of thing. Can you give me, like, Denny, do you have an idea of like axles or weight or, you know?
If we put it down to 26,000 pounds and under,
26,000
Yeah,
pounds and
that-
under
that-
can be on Zurich.
yeah, that's, we were talking about on the Hall Road, and that's mainly, I've just put it together like a car transport. I get a car hauler, hauls 2 cars, that's 26 and under. And that would be a good example, or some pickups, all the pickups would be under that, and the vans would be way under that.
Okay, so the delivery vehicles that you use, are they all going to be like pickups? They're not going to be anything that's in between?
Yeah, they're, the bulk of them are Chevy Colorados.
Okay.
So they're small pickups.
So you wouldn't have anybody that would be trying to turn on Zurich that would be in that no-haul?
They'd be directed not to, the best of my, you're talking about our own employees?
No, I'm talking about anybody who comes to visit you or
Over the 26,000
picks up,
pounds?
because you were telling me there were people that were contractors that were
Oh,
coming down.
absolutely,
I don't know what kind of vehicles they have. I assumed that some
Most
of
of
them
them are
had bigger
pickups.
vehicles.
If you're saying a pickup that's hauling 2 trucks behind it, typically not anything that large.
Well, 26,000 pounds is hard to explain, like most van body trucks,
Yep.
box trucks, the bigger ones, they would be under 26,000 or close.
We
to
get a
20.
couple of those a week. Typically, the biggest trucks that we see, these are parts runners that'll come to us. They might have a job box in the back, a 1-ton pickup truck or so, a steak truck. But most everybody is, cars and vans and Ford F-150s.
So if I were to attach a number to it, there's probably only going to be 2 or 3 vehicles a week that would be considered too big to be on a no, or
I'd say
a no-haul.
more, maybe a month.
Okay.
What, I'm not exactly clear on your time frame, so can you maybe clarify for us what you're looking at in terms of a time frame?
For construction, we'd like to get started immediately, but winter won't have it, so we're going to wait until spring at this point to avoid the conditions that come with winter and costs that come with winter. So at this point, what we would hope to do is break ground in early April.
And then, isn't there some financial, not constraints, but arrangements because of your move from the first St. Paul site that you have to make the purchase agreement on the land by, or am I misunderstanding that?
We're closing on the 15th of this month.
Okay.
And we will purchase the property. And that's not an issue. We're handling that internally and have the loans documents all ready to go.
Okay.
If you're asking about our existing building, we are selling that to a playwrights group out of Minneapolis, and they're going to take that over and turn it into some sort of a Guthrie or whatever.
The one that you're in St. Paul?
That's correct. And we're moving our St. Paul, we want this to be our headquarters. So in St. Paul, where we've had a presence since 1959, we're going to move over to where Kasota and comes off of 280. And actually, ironically, we're going to be taking over a Fastenal.
Okay.
Elizabeth, can you put up anywhere easily these elevations, the one with all 3 elevations on it?
How big is this piece of property? How big is it?
The property is roughly 4 acres.
4 acres? Okay.
Thank you.
So which elevation did you want to look at?
I would like the coming from the west.
This is the west elevation.
So as you approach from Lino, that's the front is on the top, correct?
That's the south elevation. The one that's on the top is the south elevation, and it's the west. This is the north elevation, facing the
Swamp, the
property
lake.
owners, the two adjacent residential. And then this is the east coming from the bridge.
Okay, so the loading docks, everybody driving in is going to see that, correct?
Yes.
Coming from Forest Lake. Okay, flip up then, I'm sorry. Next one there. So we see that's dressed up a little bit. The front, there's been discussion that the front looks pretty nice. And now go back down again to the,
It does not want to move.
wherever it went.
This is the south elevation.
Right, that's what you'll see as you drive by.
Yes.
Okay,
And again, this is a smaller version, not with all the colors version, and then the west version.
so what I'm driving at, everybody, is this acceptable? Is this enough decoration on this side? And if you'll think of it, if you come out of the stoplight from the horse track, cross 97, and if that road gets built there, which becomes the access point that we're all talking about, all the trees will be gone, all the brush will be gone, the flowers are gone, and this is what you're going to have a clear shot of as you approach from the west on 97, stop at the stoplight, and this is what you see. Is this enough?
Can we go back to the colored version? Okay, so that looks really nice. It's a nice retail, front. What you have in behind is a warehouse. And when I see the sides of it, it looks like the sides are all going to be in that white, is it white aggregate, you said, or white marble aggregate?
There will be a mix of white and gray. The gray is more of a charcoal color.
And that doesn't show on the sides, so what is it going to look like, I guess? We don't know what it's going to look like.
There was some, we don't have, I have some pictures of another building that was built in St. Paul that it will be very similar to. I can supply those after the fact. I don't have them with me right now, but I can do that later.
That would be nice. Because that's a huge expanse going back.
There will be differing colors, so there will be modulation of gray and white. It actually is, I think, planned at this point to be a majority of a charcoal gray panel with
Okay.
a mixing in of white.
Because doesn't that to you say, when in the front of this building, it's grounded in the darker color and it just looks,
Flash of, yeah, a pop of white, yep.
yeah, a pop of white, I would like, rather than an expanse of white.
These colors, it was mentioned at the planning commission meeting, but these colors and the materials that are being used on this are all integral. There's no maintenance that is required for these materials. The white color rock is coming from Georgia. I think you mentioned that. It's a white cement. For the panel manufacturer, this is one of their premium panels that they make.
Like no maintenance.
All right, so what are our options, everyone? Counselor? We still want to explore more on this
Access.
fourth leg of the stoplight there, correct?
So, Mr. Mayor and Council, you have essentially two options. You could defer the question regarding access, tie it to the development agreement. That's why I raised the question, because if we're going to have a public improvement, we would typically have a development agreement. That way, the development agreement and that question would come back to you. That would potentially allow the rest of the approvals to go forward tonight. You could also include in that motion, if it does go forward, that you would want to address the exterior materials also as a condition of the development agreement. That way that elevation, those elevations could come back to you. If you're not comfortable with that, you could defer. You don't have to act on any of these. I think there's still time under the 60-day rule to address both questions at a later meeting. So it's really what you're comfortable with. If those two issues you want to tie to the development agreement, we'll bring it back within that context.
Well, the 60 days will expire on October 27th. If we were going to go beyond that date, then we would send a letter to the applicants indicating that the city's going to take 60 extra days in which we have the ability to do, but we just have to put them on notice, and it has to be in writing.
And won't that sort of be predicated on the availability of the county to have those further discussions on access, at least in part?
Yes.
And what I'm, Mr. Mayor and Council, not to solve the problem tonight, but what I'm envisioning is that the development agreement would be subject to providing additional public access, reviewed by the county and signed off by the city. So in other words, even if you, let's just say you approve this before October 27th, the development agreement would be drafted in a way that that could be a future condition that's resolved with the county and with the city's input. But ultimately, that the developer would pay a, what I call a fair share, yet to be negotiated, a fair share of their portion of that roadway.
Right, so which do you strongly suggest more than the other? Take 2 weeks? I know does 2 weeks a big issue for you guys?
No, sir.
Or go ahead and do it?
You have your most discretion over the PUD, as it, I believe this is a plan unit development, so if you want to continue both the plan unit development and the discussion of a development agreement along with access, I think that makes the most sense, and you could bring it back before the 27th, isn't that right?
Yes.
So you wouldn't have to go into the second 60 days extension potentially if you get more comfortable with it in a couple weeks.
Can I bring this up with Hornsby?
Yes.
I just don't want to throw a monkey wrench in here, but I am kind of in charge of branding of Columbus. And I talked with you. What's your name again?
Tom.
Tom. I didn't catch it when you talked to your dad. I went to your place in Vadnais Heights, and I understood that it was kind of an interim place for you. But we did go look at another site. And I just kept saying, I'm looking at this building, and it looks like a warehouse. It doesn't look like a retail building. And you are going into our retail area, okay? And you can hear that we have some problems with the access and everything. And at that time, I talked to you about the fact that we have areas in Columbus that are really visible from 35, and that you can really, we have a brand-new road that's going to be going in that can handle semis. You have no right-hand turn lane problem, when I looked at I kept thinking, what is retail, and we wanted this to be retail area. And, it's supposed to be sales of good to public with relatively small amounts for consumption rather than resale. And I know that you sell to a lot of the contractors and everything, but you also sell to, I believe Target was on one of your lists that you had there, so that is for resale.
I'll continue.
Go ahead.
We cut Target loose.
I'm sorry?
Okay, then.
Okay, but I'm just saying that, I had noticed that you had some people that were not end users, that they were going to do resale.
Target buys their fall protection from us, so they actually are the end user. When in their own warehouses, when they're doing.
Oh, they're going to use it in their warehouse.
Yeah,
Okay,
they
all
supply
right,
it for
fair
their own
enough,
employees.
fair enough.
We do
But I
some
also-
resale, though.
Okay, so I also said, the retailers are usually selling to people at a retail price, and you and I talked about the fact that possibly there were special dispensation for people that came in with prices, so that like somebody that might be coming and visiting Columbus and would walk into your store would get a different price than than the people that you normally deal with. And I thought, well, that sounds kind of like a wholesaler, you know? The problem is that you've got, the definition of retail, as I understand it, is that usually you have like a showroom or a place where people shop that's like 70%, 80% of the square footage is devoted to that, rather than what you've got, which is 2/3 warehouse and, being generous, sales force, because you got people at desks also as being retail. So the thing is that when I looked at it, I said 2/3 of the building is a warehouse. That's what it looks like. Why would you not want to be in a warehouse district? And I started thinking about down on 35, you know, you're north of the split. It's on the right-hand side. We have made special agreements with other companies to make their signs even bigger, you know, so that it really is kind of flashy and you can advertise to the public that you're there. So I guess I was just concerned, I wanted to know why, with the access problem, the less visibility up there. I know the guys with the coffee cups and in the holiday are going to be part of your, you know, vision, but it just seemed to me that it seemed like that would have been a better fit. Your building looks like the new building that they have just put down there for Bear Homes. So if I could just ask you that question.
One of the main reasons I wanted to be closer to that split right there, right off the freeway, was the same issue when you came and visited us at Venice Heights, where I asked you, did you have any trouble finding the place? And the answer was yes, I did. I've been battling that since 2012 with that location. So I need to be somewhere that is very easy to get to. In the interim, for the right in, right out, we have learned that along the way. I can deal with that in the interim. That is not the solution. I will agree with you on that. We need to come up with a better solution for that, for ease for everybody involved. But if I get too far away, essentially then it's a deal killer for me. Because I need it to be where the contractors come in, get the stuff, find me very easily, and get out. For example, the situation we're doing in St. Paul, we're making it easier for the customers to find. As far as the retail side of it, I believe I discussed it with you, that the locations that you've stopped in at, with the way the stores are set up, is kind of a way, you know, it's been taught by a guy who learned it from a guy who learned it from a guy who taught it to himself. These things have to change, and what we're looking to do is, these stores currently they have a display model, they have all of the inventory, some things they just have partial inventory. So the idea behind this now is to get a lot more inventory where that is its main home as far as an inventory control standpoint out on the floor. One of the issues is where we need some more warehouse space than others is because a lot of the product that we handle, such as traffic cones, I'm not going to put 2,000 traffic cones out in the store. Having a couple is plenty, but then the guy can back his truck up to the dock and, you know, get what he needs, or sweeping compound. These are things that one of the things that separates us from, you know, the average hardware store. What customer told me once, he was buying his headlamps from me. You know, the flashlight you put on your head. Well, they have these, can you get me these kinds? They have these kinds at Menards. Well, why would you get them from me if they have Menards? Well, because Menards only has 4. I need 25. We carry in bulk as well, so we can actually take care of people that are running crews. So that causes, you don't need to have, you know, 25 headlamps out in the store at any given time. There needs to be some space behind the scenes to store a lot of this stuff. Am I making sense? Am I leaving anything out?
Well, I guess
of your
only
questions?
the fact is that you have higher visibility to the Twin Cities and your people coming from the north being on 35.
Correct. At this point, I understand that. I have very high visibility where I'm at in Venice Heights as well. I'm freeway side between 96 and Conroe E. People still can't find me. They get lost trying to figure out how to get there. We have other locations that aren't as easy to find, that have had some. I was under the misconception that if we build it, they will come. That's just simply not true. They need to be able to get in and get out. They need to be able to find me a lot easier without having to deviate off the freeway, you know, a mile or two. That's based on my business experience with in the last, you know, 5 years with what we've been trying to do.
how far are the lots, on the freeway? They're not a mile down, are they? Some of the lots that we have along 35 that are for sale, that people wanted to sell down there?
On which side? West Freeway Drive or Hornsby?
On the east, yeah, where they'd be getting right out on Hornsby. They've got a road that's made for semis. I guess my deal is that, right now I'm envisioning, and I don't know if you guys understand where they would have to go. If they take a right turn out, how far they have to go down. Not only how far they have to go down, but the turnaround is really difficult if they're in Columbus, so they have to pretty much go to Lino. So what I'm saying is you come up 35, you make a right at our exit, you make one more right, there's the building, you can have the big signs, with Viking on there, and you've got a road that's made for semis and all your guys, So I'm just kind of, wow, why would you put yourself up for this?
I guess I'm not entirely familiar with which area you're talking about. The areas that were presented to me before, about 6 months ago, none of those made sense to me.
Was that through us, or?
Through realtors and through some city people,
Okay.
you're correct.
Okay.
Some of the spaces weren't big enough. I'm not exactly sure which location you're talking about.
Okay.
Speaking of being on Lake Drive, I think they picked a good location, because the way last couple of years, I keep telling people to right down past Running Aces, and they could just say right across from Running Aces, and 90% of the people will know that. Easy to find. Right in, right out, we have to justify that, but for now, I think everything, I like the look of the building, I think it looks nice, pictures I've seen.
I really don't, I like the building too. Like I said, I didn't really want to have an all-white building, but I just feel like it's a really huge building in a place where we had designated retail.
I think it's a good fit in that property, that's all I got to say. And you want to stick on the other side of the freeway, I don't think we have the power to suggest that to them. They picked this property because they liked it. That's why they picked it.
Well, just as Anoka County suggests, properties within Anoka County to people that come to them and ask for help, I think we have the right to make the suggestion. And I'm just saying, there were a lot of pieces of property over there, like I said, that would have been a warehouse district look to it versus the retail. And I wanted to give my opinion of that because, like, we talked that one day, and I just didn't feel like, just between the two of us, we didn't really have a chance to put it out to the public.
I think I'm not really going for the whole warehouse idea. Maybe I didn't hit on this point hard enough. What I really want is I want a great big beautiful store, and that's in the way that it's set up right now. My builder happens to say that the store space costs a lot more than my warehouse space. I can always expand into it, or we can yell at him, but it's a big shell is what I'm building. And so it's going to have the drop ceiling and a non-supporting wall behind it, which means I can always expand into that further and further as we grow, which would be great. And so I want this to be a store. I want, bright lights, lots of windows, here we are, we're open for business, everybody's welcome. I don't want to be stuck in a warehouse district where there's a bunch of semi-trucks moving around. We have been honest with you, we do get semi-trucks, absolutely we do. We get our goods in, but I want to have a store. That's more important to me than any other part of this, I guess.
And we're talking about that small portion in the front, right?
Originally, yeah, it's 5,000 square feet. So it's, for starters, it'd be the largest store that we have currently. From the places that you walked into, it'd be 2, 3, 4 times the size of any of those stores that you walked into, with a much cleaner look, newer shelves, paint on the walls, that sort of deal.
Okay. That's all I had.
Jeff, any concerns from you?
No, I don't have any concerns. I think if we can work out that right in, right out, and work that out, I think it'd be a good fit. I think it'd be welcome you guys here, so.
And Danny, no problem?
No, I like the way, I like the plan, I like the location.
So we have two choices of motions. They're both written for us. Would someone like to make one or the other? One, to continue the discussion for another 2 weeks, so we can have another meeting and
Find out about the right turns. Can we find
about
out?
the right turns. That's what we're
Yep.
waiting for, the turn issues.
I think we want to find that out. That'd be a good thing to wait for.
And you say it's not going to hinder your, not starting to build next week?
No, sir.
Or the other one would be to just move it forward tonight. But Jeff, I think I agree with you. I'd like to hear from the county and see what they,
Yeah, this doesn't affect their building at all. Their construction, which is spring, you said.
all right?
Well, let me put it this way.
Yep.
We're eager to invest $3 million in the community, and we're, I think, converging on a mutual situation, whatever the details might be. So we're eager to start, and I think, I sense that you're eager to make sure we don't turn it into an urban blight, and I would agree with you. The last thing we want to do is ruin the location. We do not want to do that. I'd be interested in speaking with you later, if I could, about your other options.
All right. So would someone please make whichever motion you'd like?
Mr. Mayor, the only thing, there would be an amendment to the motion because you would move to continue the discussion for 2 weeks. I didn't put a date certain because I didn't know the time frame that you had.
So just insert that. Move to continue the discussion
What's
2
the
weeks.
date?
Or 2 weeks, October 23rd.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, I might not be here next 2 weeks. I was in North Dakota. I don't know if it's supposed to be snowing, but, so I don't know if I want it or not.
Are you asking to continue it for 4 weeks?
I think maybe we should. I think it's,
I think we should vote on it. I think we should let it go through with the condition of looking at the road problem, the right in, right out problem. I mean, we can delay this thing for months, and we're going to have to make a decision anyway.
we want to get a favorable vote though, so that's what I'm thinking here, so.
Well, and I think the date part is hard because we don't know what the availability of Anoka County is. So if we can get them here sooner, but we put it out 4 weeks, can we move it up if we need,
It's easier to continue it another cycle than to move it up. So
Okay.
once you set a date in your motion, that's the date. So you could do 2 weeks, and then if it's not completely resolved, then continue.
move it out again? So then let's do 2 weeks.
All right, who wants to make the motion?
I don't know what we agreed to. Are we talking 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay. Make a motion to continue the discussion for October 23rd and for the public right-of-way access by this business and future businesses to be further discussed with the applicant, Anoka County, and the city staff to determine if alternatives for access by this business and future businesses can better be accommodated.
Second.
I got a question. What date would it be continued on to? The 13th?
23rd, to be said.
23rd? That's 2
Oh,
weeks.
No, 25th.
Did you say the
I
23rd?
just wrote down 25th. Sorry, everybody.
23rd.
No,
It's
23rd.
23rd.
Okay.
I said 23rd, didn't I? Yeah.
Time for a nap.
2 weeks.
So we don't have to redo it.
I second.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none. We will continue this discussion on the 23rd.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Feel free to talk to anyone.
Yes.
So there's more clarification and more understanding. And also, Elizabeth, who talks to the county? You?
I will. I'll talk to the county to see if I can schedule something, and then I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you, and then you can coordinate everybody else.
Elizabeth, the gentleman that owns the property next door to him, the rental property there, I know he bought that property quite a few years ago. I know of him, I talk to him once in a while. You should get a hold of him and get him into discussions too.
Okay.
Because it's going to affect his property, has to move.
We have talked to them.
You did?
Talking to them now.
Good,
Is that the
good.
one with
Nice guy, but be cool.
Driveway? Or the other side?
I believe that they're talking about the road access. You're talking about the road access, not the residential properties, correct?
The road access,
Okay.
correct. I believe it's M&M.
Yes.
And Elizabeth, you also, we're going to try to organize a neighborhood meeting, or?
At the direction of the city council, I would offer that if you wanted city staff to sit down with the neighbors, which are the two residential properties to the north, just more of a meeting so that we can give them information and then figure out a good solution for, there is an encroachment for driveways and such, so that they understand what is happening in the property, or with both properties.
You'd recommend that?
If the council thought that was a good idea and gave direction, then that would be my suggestion.
Have you guys talked to any length with those people? Or, sorry, come on back.
I've had a discussion with M&M Properties, I believe it is, Roger and Michelle over there.
That's to the, that would be to the west. We're talking about the
To the
people.
north, no, I have not.
no.
I wasn't going to go rock the boat until we knew what exactly was going on here.
So if you like, we can also, invite you into the neighborhood meeting. It would just be amongst the three property owners.
Or does it make more sense to have the meeting with Anoka County first and then do the neighborhood meeting after that?
I believe you're probably onto something because they have an access drive that comes out very near to where we're currently proposing it. So if it stays a right in, right out because there's not a better alternative, they will probably have an access easement into Tom's and Williams' property. So that would probably be a better
Okay.
path to have that meeting first with Anoka.
Okay.
The last time when we met with Anoka a couple of months ago, they were very quick to react, so.
Okay.
Okay, so that'll be the plan. Talk to Anoka first. We'll talk to you guys. Talk to everybody up here, then we'll talk to them. Right?
Sounds good.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
I do. The question is,
Good.
can I find it?
Barb, you can come back up, readjust
give
your
you my credit card.
microphone.
I'll take one of yours, too.
Take one of yours? Yeah, you can do it too. I had one here.
He did send it to me. I was just looking to see if,
Came through on my phone.
okay.
All right, Barb.
Okay, the final public hearing was an application dated September 13, 2019 by Jason Pribble for Bear Homes requesting a CUP amendment to revise the Bear Homes exterior building elevation materials and from the approved site plan submitted in 2018, which called for a precast exposed aggregate in gray tones. Before the public hearing, we were invited to Bear Homes, and all of the commissioners, I believe, were able to go over there and view the property. And Ron Hanegraaff and I met with Josh and the architect on September 25th, 2019. The requested changes to the smooth precast painted concrete panels had already been done in white and light gray. They explained that the blue panels were on hold but could be completed within 4 weeks. We explained that the deviation from the original design standard should have been approved through the city administration and city council. And I explained that the Planning Commission and the administration staff had worked many hours to develop a cohesive and complementary design standards for the Freeway District, and that we had decided at that time that we didn't want concrete panels, or painted concrete panels. We wanted something that was maintenance-free. I asked what type of paint was used and what the warranty on the paint or workmanship was, and they told me that that information could be provided. Regarding the landscaping on the west side, we took a look, and they indicated that sumac would be used on the freeway side of the warehouse. During the Planning Commission meeting, Josh said he felt the original design didn't match their brand. They wanted something lighter, more classic. Dean Johnson revised his recommendations for the amendment and came up with amended recommendations 1 through 16. And the commission didn't want to delay the project, so we accepted those recommendations with the updates for landscaping on the west exterior and additional information on the paint warranties, and forwarded to the council for approval.
All right. Josh, do you guys want to come up? Good evening.
Josh Pribble,
Address, please.
10335 Naples Street, Northeast Blaine, Minnesota, 55449.
Todd Mohegan, Mohegan Hanson Architecture and Interiors, 1012 Oak Center Drive, Wayzata, Minnesota.
Thank you both for coming tonight. The council has received the updated in our packet. I know some people have more questions. And so why don't we begin with you guys just giving us a recap of your changes, some information about the paint, et cetera.
Sure. So yeah, we had the commissioners come out, and the feedback was all very positive. It went very well. And then we came to the last meeting, and then we got feedback that you wanted a little more blue, a little something on that southwest corner of the building to break it up. So we came up with the design that was submitted.
Up on the screen is the west elevation that was submitted. No, sorry,
West.
it's the west elevation.
Here's the west.
The blue is depicted as the same metal panel that's on the branding that you see that has Bear. So it's a composite metal panel.
The, it also shows on the south elevation.
So maybe if everybody looks at this one, you can see it. On the south side, wraps around the freeway side.
You know, I think one of the things in the elevations that you have, when you look at this building, you see the blue panels, you see the gray panels, but when you actually do the elevations, you see the lines that go up and down, those very dark black lines. It's a little deceiving when you're looking at those pictures, because the black lines don't show.
That's correct.
You know what I mean? So I think when you
That's
actually-
more indicative of what it would look like.
of what it looks like, yes.
And there were, I think, photographs that were included. If you might want to bring that up, that'd be probably helpful.
I think that was the only photo that,
Oh, you mean about other sites?
No.
This photo that we took.
I
Oh,
think
the-
on Tuesday that was sent, maybe that didn't get included.
We put it up on the overhead.
The black lines that are vertical that are in the elevation are just the panel joints. They're 8-foot wide panels. and the horizontal and the vertical that are accentuated by the different gray, they are scored in the actual concrete panel, the horizontals.
And this is the final coat of gray? I mean, that's the colors, this is it,
That's correct.
except for the addition of the blue,
Yes.
right? Everybody understand that?
The blue will be on the end with the, where it's extended above the, it'll be all blue, right?
Yes.
Right?
So you're proposing 2 stripes on this end right here, right? Wrapping around the building?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want us to add something, that's what we're proposing.
All right, who has questions or discussion?
Well, I have both. So what did we find out about the warranty on the paint? Because I'm really concerned about how that's going to hold up.
I can answer that. I think that was included to an email. Was that included in your packet?
Yeah.
That was from the
One-year
contractor?
warranty, yeah.
So that doesn't seem, it's only 1 year?
That's the warranty, that the paint, that's very typical.
Well, I'm not sure it is. I mean, when I bought paint to paint the west side of my house, it had a 30-year warranty on it. It was the actual type of paint that had like a chemical reaction to get it to bond, so you didn't have to worry about it peeling off or anything like that. I mean, it would seem that a 1-year warranty is not going to hold up, especially when you've got potential salt spray from the freeway and just all the exhaust. It's pretty
The
corrosive.
paint is a PPG paint, and this is a paint that's used in industrial buildings throughout the Twin Cities. Most likely, any of the white buildings that you've seen or in any of the other industrial buildings, this would be the same paint.
If they're painted, otherwise they might be white like the former applicant has where it's actually
That
stone.
was looked at, and that's a aggregate, and actually what they said, it was more gray than white. I think that you'll find that to be true.
Some gray, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm concerned about the durability of the paint, but the other thing is, you know, I'm really struggling because I understand that you are looking for sort of that bare look. But the first plan that we saw fit better with sort of our vision for the city of what we'd like those buildings to look like, which means that they would blend in a little bit more with the lush green surroundings. And so you had more muted tones. It actually fit better with the development that we're putting up in the northeast quadrant as well. This, I couldn't put my finger on it, but this just kind of glows in the dark, and it really stands out against the natural look of the surroundings, and I think that's what I'm really struggling with. And the blue doesn't help that because that's such a sharp contrast against the stark white. I'm worried that the white's not going to stay white. The white's going to show everything. It's going to show the rust from the water if you happen to have irrigation and it sprays on the side of the building. So I guess I'm wondering if there's any way we can get closer to what your original look was with the materials that you have without incurring a huge amount of expense.
Maybe you want to comment on the brand and...
And it might be helpful, Elizabeth, if you can show what the original, what you received from the architect originally, that were some examples of, and I recognize that these were examples and not meant to be like things that we could react to, but I think it gives a better sense. No, the
So
pic-
these are the original building.
Right, but I'm talking about the pictures that you got of other businesses.
Precedents?
Pardon?
The
This
precedents?
one, right?
No,
This
put them on the overhead, and I realize that this is not something you were proposing to us, but I think it helps, because these are white buildings that have more, of a muted tone, so it's not so starkly white. And I'm just wondering whether or not we could get closer to something that looked like this without it being, you know, a huge expense. There's another example. So you can see the white is still there. It's just not such a big canvas of white, and so starkly contrasting with the surroundings.
I think these images were just submitted to show that this is the same type of material, but not design.
Right, but I'm asking if you could consider a design that's closer to this than what you have.
I don't like that design.
Okay.
And it doesn't go with our brand.
Except it's closer to what you originally proposed to us.
I don't think so. Elizabeth, can you show what was originally proposed? So this is what's approved. And to me, this is significantly more plain. And the feedback you're providing is that you want more complex. And so I think we've definitely achieved that with their current proposal.
Well, no, I'm not asking for more complex. I'm asking for less of a stark difference between what your building color is and the surrounding environment. And so these are more muted tones, grayish with shades of gray. And that doesn't stand out as much against all the green like the bright white does and the electric blue. So that's what I'm struggling with is the white, the contrast between that stark white building and the huge expanse of white, and then the green around it.
Elizabeth, could you put up the Olympus precedents that was should be in the packet?
Looks like this.
Are you talking about one of these, or?
I think what you,
This, but I've written on it. Somebody got one on the clean copy of this? Got the apple on it.
It was in the packet?
Yeah,
It's,
I probably have a clean one.
No, it's not in the,
Here it is.
oh, okay.
Upper left.
I don't think it's the best picture of what you're trying to go for here, but.
maybe you can discuss a little bit about how your brand fits in that design.
You know, I think the Olympus building looks fantastic. You know, it's light, classic, simple, clean. You know, and it's a similar look that what we're going for.
The side of the building that is facing the highway is got significantly more dark gray on it.
We have significantly more blue.
That was not in the original plan.
the other thing is, I mean, I've driven by that building. It's kind of in an industrial park sort of setting. It's not, it doesn't have all the greenery around it. So I think that it fits its surroundings a little bit better.
Wasn't that area going to be developed and there won't be much greenery?
That's in their commercial industrial zone in Brooklyn Park.
That's what I just said, yeah. So that makes sense in an industrial area. You guys aren't in an industrial area.
I think was it originally an industrial area? And then it got switched to showroom district?
It never
No.
changed.
It
No.
never changed.
And so I think that's what I should say me, I shouldn't speak for everybody else. That's what I had in mind when I saw the original renditions of your design. It's like, oh, this fits the area And especially because at that point you were talking about aggregate, which to me has a more natural look than the precast concrete. I get that that's not an option anymore, but I just think even if we could get back to more of those sorts of color combinations, muted colors rather than the bright white and bright blue, that would be a big plus from my perspective. But that's me, so I'm happy to hear from anybody else.
Well, I have a few comments, because I feel like I sat at a planning commission where I was muzzled in the gallery, and I am part of the Columbus Council, and I wanted to be able to say something based on that. I came to the commission meeting, and I heard a lot about your vision and your goals and your brand, and I don't think you thought anything about what maybe Columbus wanted for that look on the highway. We have a brand-new bridge that's being built. We have areas that we want to make look natural but inviting to have the public come to. And you decided that you wanted a more tech look. You use tech, you also use soft, cloud-like, and on your side of the building where the people are gonna come into, I don't have a problem. You have a right to have your brand there. You have a right to say, this is, Bear Home. But then we should have a say in the other sides of it that are in our community, and you didn't consult with us. You didn't become a partner. You just said, you got to take this. I look at it as Dayglow white. I was just blown away by the whiteness of it. I don't even know some of the buildings that are more white. You sent this, okay? It's from Brooklyn Park, Atlantic City, and LA. That's not Columbus. So I had a problem with that. You said that you wanted a soft, cozy cloud of a building, and on your side, because it's got the glass and some of the stuff that breaks up the white, maybe that vision happens for your customers. But on our side of the building that you're going to see, actually three sides are coming from the north, the south, and then you see the west. It looks like a stark, angular shoebox, and that's not what we expected. And we thought the least you can do is, okay, if it's muted colors, such as what they're going to do on the corner that we've got up there, it looks like it kind of blends in with the rest of the scenery. You have a background of the wetlands right now. Granted, it may not stay that way, but right now it is just glaring white there, and there is not that much difference. I think the head of our planning commission said there's very little difference between the two grays. So you have a 100,000 square foot building that is white. And it's just not what we thought it was gonna be, And I don't care if it's passé anymore to have exposed aggregate or whatever, it doesn't look like we expected. I would like to see something on the highway that blends better with the countryside. I don't care about your side, as far as what you want as your brand. I'm happy that you have the look you want there, and I think that your customers should see that. But I think that on our side, we would like something, like I said, that blends in better. If you'd asked us before, instead of violating things that were in writing, I know it would have been less costly for you to do this. And I don't want to ask you to do, repaint the entire building or whatever on our side, okay? But there's got to be something better than putting two blue stripes on the side. That looks to me like you're adding insult to injury. We didn't ask for blue. We know that that's your color, and in the original plan, it looked like that. But it also had a muted tone that fit with the countryside. So, in the end, did you even know what our motto was for our city? It's rural nature, urban access. That doesn't mean we want to be part of the urban. We don't want to be LA, we don't want to be Brooklyn Park, we don't want to be Atlantic City, and all those places you talk about that they've got the big white warehouses and everything, that's not what we want to be. So that's all I got to say.
Jeff, anything to add? Any?
I've got nothing to say.
All right, so what are our options, Counselor?
Mr. Mayor and Council, a couple of comments. First of all, this is a amendment of the CUP, conditional use permit, so you have some discretion over that. That is confined by what is in the city code. And so I've had individual discussions with some of you about the city code and, amending that code over time to kind of implement your vision. I think there's a certain amount of frustration that this got done without your approval, and I appreciate that. I think going forward, we have to look at how we can change the code to kind of implement that vision. In the meantime, the planner has stated, I think on the record, that the materials satisfy the city code. So the question is, do you want to use, this approval, this change, to force additional refinements of the plan, or will you accept it in this form? And that's really it. And I think the biggest thing we have, if you contrast with the last application, because there's a lot of similarities, right? Including the zoning, including, location near the freeway. The difference here is that there was a change made that was not consistent with the plans that were approved.
But I think the other thing to consider, and maybe Elizabeth, you can speak to this, I mean, there was TIF funding provided based on the value of the property with the original design. So how do we ensure that that is consistent with whatever new design we approve or we go forward with? What's the process for that? What do you have to do to ensure that the TIF funding is adjusted if it needs to be?
So at the current time, there's a value that was put on the building permits that shows value of what the applicant is putting into the building. And Anoka County will evaluate what the market value of the building for tax purposes. And Alex Gutenberg is doing that currently. This particular property was in Green Acres prior to this applicant buying the property. And so today the value isn't in there because there's a mechanism that they have to go through in order to evaluate the property. If the value comes in lower than we initially thought through the TIF district, then the property would only be eligible for reimbursement of that value. So there is no, this property was projected to generate so much market value or tax dollars. If it doesn't generate those tax dollars, they wouldn't be eligible for refunding of the original amount. It would be somewhat less. And I don't know what the value is because I don't have any information back from the county.
Okay.
Under, just a quick additional comment, under what's called a pay-as-you-go note, if the increment doesn't come through, then the developer, the owner gets less.
Mm-hmm.
So Josh, let me ask you, so when you were looking at the last council meeting, the council asked you to come back with different proposals. Is this the only proposal that you came up with, or were there others that maybe, didn't contain as much blue, or did you look at other
Yeah,
renderings?
Certainly. I mean, the original design process took a long time, 6 months and back and forth, and we've tried a bunch of different looks, and, we came to what was submitted previously, and, had 6 people working on it. We had 24 hours to get something in by the deadline, and, there wasn't, when you change part of design, it kind of changes a lot of things. It's not easy just to, add something without it affecting other things. And so we really struggled to find something and came up with that last hour, came up with other options that had less blue, but I thought you guys would shoot those down, but I did bring, one that has less blue, but, I didn't get the feedback that you just wanted a little blue.
Did you have anything that would lessen the effect of white with a 100,000 square foot building?
Lessen the effect of white.
I mean, it's a big white shoebox from the highway. It's not on your side. I love your side. It's great, you know?
Why don't you show what you
All
have
right.
done?
You want to put on the overhead?
It's the same design, just different angles. Yes.
I hesitate to bring this up, but you talked about putting another 100,000 square foot building somewhere, and I can't even imagine two white ones next to each other.
I mean, when we get to that point, we can definitely make sure not to drop the ball and get it submitted correctly, and make sure you guys are real happy with it.
Is there any possibility of adding more windows to break up the white?
I mean, we can add fake windows.
What does that mean? What are fake windows?
That it's a warehouse area, so the windows that are there right now are up high, so they're clear story. They would just open it up so if they were real windows, you'd see warehouse racking. There's a technique where they're called spandrel glass, where it's reflective, so it looks like glass, but it doesn't, there's
can't
no
see.
vision through it.
But that would probably pretty significantly break up the big white canvas, if that's a possibility. I think that's part of why the front of the building looks, so much more appealing to me, is because you have a lot more glass. You've got those big windows on the, on the kind of ground level, and then obviously the big corner part that's all glass. So you don't have this sort of big, huge expanse of white. So if it's possible to add more windows on this stretch, that's the big white stretch, that might help. Fake
Okay,
windows.
So this side we're looking at is the short side, right? You got the longer sides? Okay, so you're coming down 35, either way. And you got this, you got the entire expanse, except for the black loading docks that I noticed today. You got the entire expanse white that way and that way. I mean, it's just a
If you
huge
look at
white presence.
rendering, that's what you would see from the freeway
Three-quarter?
from the south. The rendering that is there.
And it was on the,
It's
The previous one that's right next to it.
right on the counter. So if you pull that over,
oh, there you go.
I mean, that's at the location right where the ramp comes down. From the other direction, the trees that are on the that don't show here, but there's some large trees that are on the very left that are in another rendering, but you don't, when you're coming down from the north, it's obscured quite a bit by those trees.
So if you put your fake windows in, how does it go? Below those others or alongside of them, or?
That's kind of the problem.
And we were concerned that they'd look fake because they'd be sitting off the wall versus those ones are in, and then it's just going to be black.
Elizabeth, remember the one picture you showed me where the whole, like, where that gray kind of column is? Like, if that were all fake windows? Yeah.
Those are actually real, but
I know those are real, but I know that real's not an option. But if you did something like that with your fake windows, would that work? I mean, again, that would break up the big expanse of white.
I mean, would it be okay to use a darker gray on that? I mean,
A darker gray of the paint, you
Darker
mean?
gray where?
just vertically.
A darker gray where?
Window?
Or, Shelley,
I don't know if
instead
I'm
of
okay
the,
with that, but
Well, for instance, you showed us that Olympus building, and it had sections of darker gray, so that it just kind of
Right.
broke it up.
right.
I don't know if that was only on the street side. I don't know, you know, I don't know what you can do about the south side. I really don't. But that's the front of the Olympus building. I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about what you see from the
Freeway.
highway.
Elizabeth, could you put up the one that shows it as it is today? And maybe if we looked at, that was, so I think there's probably some concern about using blue on the corner. Can we throw that out, maybe?
I'd be all for that.
Okay?
This is the landscape plan, right? Or this is?
That's correct. I mean, are you maybe suggesting that looking at darkening up that vertical, either in glass or in paint or some other means?
Yeah, I mean, that would help, I think. It might even help if you had more than one darked up vertical.
well, that would definitely contrast everything better. Going back, Elizabeth, your photograph with the windows, which here would be fake windows, I think would be more desirable than paint.
Well, the other thing is, everybody has their own personal opinion. I don't think that's fair either. I mean, what we had hoped was you would bring back, 4 or 5 things, and that we would see something that, but when you add more blue, which is almost like insult to injury with the white. If it wasn't white, the blue wouldn't, and that's the purpose you did it for, right? You wanted it to stand out. You wanted Bear Homes to be out there in blue, and that's your color. And I don't have a problem with that. It's the rest of the building that is so white. And so I'm saying, can you come up with something that relieves that color palette a little bit? Or can you add panels? We shouldn't be telling you where to put panels or how dark they should be or whatever. We're saying that right now you've got a white box. I mean, I've talked to several people. There's not much contrast between the two grays, and you don't have, and most of it is that really, really white. So again, I understand that it goes with your brand. It just is kind of a shock coming down 35.
The white is actually like a really light gray, and, everyone I've talked to has thought this looks really great. So yeah, I think there's a lot of differing opinions.
Okay, so what's the color of exposed aggregate?
What's the color of exposed aggregate? I think it depends on the rock.
Well, the ones that we saw, that color, I suppose it would be more like that color.
That's paint.
That's pink?
Paint.
Paint.
Oh, paint. No, I get it. I'm saying, but the problem is that I didn't want paint in the first place. I want exposed aggregate because there was
Right.
no maintenance,
Right,
you
right,
know?
right. No, I get,
I'm saying I want that sense of color, that, looking, and I assume that would be more like what you had come up with in the first place, I guess. And I don't think we should be sitting here trying to tell them how to design their building.
No, I was just trying to maybe better articulate what we were hoping to try to accomplish. And you said it well. It's more of a harmony with the natural surroundings.
And you shouldn't have to guess what we want, except for the fact that we did show you what we approved. and now we're telling you that this is too far away from what we thought it was going to be. So have you not gotten something from us that says, oh, well, it should fit a little more in with the, you know, like when you're going down the highway, it should fit more in with the,
Kind of getting, feel like conflicting feedback.
okay?
But,
Well, what's conflicting?
originally I thought that if we just add some trees, that was the issue, and then I thought adding more blue was what was needed, and now it's not the blue. We can, take away that blue addition and try to do, some fake glass like that. Would
Well,
that-
like I said, if you have 3 or 4 things you can bring to us, and, then we can just say, yeah, that's closer, or that's what we can accept, versus 2 blue stripes on the side.
Do you feel like you have a better sense of what we're looking for? No.
No.
Okay.
I think there's clearly a design discrepancy here. Like, you have a vision for what it should be. Josh has a vision for what it should be.
And what I'm saying is, I don't want you to necessarily take my vision. I want you to give me what you said you were going to give me, and I understand that's impossible at this point, so can we come to some kind of compromise, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And
that's what we're
like I said, adding more blue to that stark white is not a compromise. That's just like, whoa, add some, no. I don't know what you can do on the building to make it darker or just not so day glow. It works for you in the front, I get it, but on the highway, it's just,
If I can summarize this, because I've heard here, even in these pictures that you gave us, I don't think it's about, yes, you want white, and I understand you want white, and even the Ziegler building is white. I think what you're hearing from all of them is, when you have a white building, you would add other design features to break up the white wall. And I think what you're hearing over and over again is, it's a white wall, and it just looks like a wall, and there's nothing to break it up. So when you see white buildings, and all of these buildings, there's glass. I mean, they're white buildings, but each one of them has a huge element of glass and other materials. And so I think what at least the discussion that you and I had with the mayor was, okay, how can we break up how can we break up the white wall? You know what I mean? And I think when I talked with you, I said, breaking up the white wall, you can still use white, but use other materials to break that up. Whether you had an articulating wall that came out with a different texture, or whether you had different things that you could break it up. But the message, I think, from everyone you've heard tonight is it's really not about, it's about color, but it's more about breaking up a big white wall with, whether it's glass or whether it's the surrounding features. And we tried to tell you, you can use these other things, whether it was landscaping, whether it was glass, whether it was another color, but not, as Janet was saying, we picked colors for the bridge, and when we used that color palette, we wanted to see and use colors that were about Columbus, and they're more of the earth tone kind of colors, which is what was originally presented with that aggregate kind of color scheme. But no one's going to design your building for you, so they're waiting for you to come up with a design that has those features in them. And I think that's where we have the disconnect. And it's unfortunate because you're at a point where it's hard to add glass, but I think using color, you might be able to break up the building a little bit. And I did have feedback from the Planning Commission, and what feedback I did have, they really didn't think the stripes that, as you presented, was quite what they were looking for either.
Yeah, I don't know. I was really shocked because when we met with them, everyone was real positive, and we asked any feedback, anything we should change, and everything was great. And but yeah, I mean, let's try that glass.
I will say this, I mean, from the front, and I think that, didn't the planning commission come through the front door? Did you walk around the back, or?
Yes.
You did walk around the back?
Yes.
That's where I have the disconnect. The other thing that Barb said was that you're going to put sumac on the,
The revised landscape plan, the landscape architect changed them to the species that,
so the bigger, you're going
well, there's a lower level, which was sent, there was examples sent of that. I can give you that.
I guess my whole point is that, again, you know, if we're concerned about a big white building and it went from large deciduous trees to sumac, that's worse. You know, I mean, it now exposes more of the white building.
Well, let's, just to be clear,
I thought it was ornamental trees and, yeah, I was just going to say it didn't.
Okay, well then, maybe we just got the wrong information.
Mr. Mayor and council, maybe to suggest a path forward, if you're willing to entertain that at this point. Obviously, you know, probably it's not going to be resolved tonight, right? So your options are to pass it as is, to pass it with changes, or to possibly delegate a couple members of the council to look at the changes in the interim.
can I may even suggest something else?
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
Okay. And so, you know, sometimes that happens at a staff level. I mean, the staff's kind of done with this, so it's now at the council level. So if you want to, you know, kind of delegate a couple of members to at least be your eyes and ears, then you'd have an opportunity to review it before it comes back here. So that's one possibility.
And this would come back at the next meeting?
That would be, is that doable?
Well, it's more of if it's doable for you guys, I think.
Well,
Or
can I
what
maybe
were you
make
gonna
it?
suggest?
So I'm done, so.
Okay.
But-
A win-win on this would be that, sounds like you're satisfied with the east, the north, and the south face. And to put the blue panels up and to get a certificate of occupancy so that they can start their operations would be fantastic. I think you could come to that resolution here today, and that we would work on the west elevation in the future.
So I thought we were still on a hold with the CO because of the glass front part.
So my understanding from Leon today is he did receive plans, engineered stamp plans with the fix for the glass in the entryway. And my understanding is the fix is underway, that there's construction bracing for the windows under construction. There has not been an inspection yet. So I'm not sure when that's going to be completed. But as soon as that's completed, it will be inspected to see that it was built as the engineer has indicated. And then at that point, there's no outstanding issues from a building perspective.
How long do you think it'll take to build, to complete that change with the glass in front? I mean, if we try to set a goal for ourselves, coming up with something in 2 weeks, are we kind of converging on the date that you're probably thinking that construction will be done?
Actually, what would be great is if
And
you
inspected.
could give them permission to, because the panels that are on the outside will not hinder a certificate of occupancy. They could get a temporary certificate of occupancy, they can start bringing in product and start their operation. What would also help from a construction standpoint is if they can start putting up the blue panels so that they can be closer to being done. And I would say in the next 2 weeks, we would be able to resolve the west elevation.
Mr. Mayor, and if that's done, are we going to be in a situation where you can't finish let's just say they say do darker bands, can that be accomplished?
I didn't hear that.
So if I'm just making it up.
Yeah.
As we go, but if they say, let's darken those bands, let's create a greater contrast, can that still be done in this construction season? Or are we looking at chasing, next year for that finished product?
Paint, as we know, that might be difficult just because of the temperatures that are going on now are anticipated. If it's a glass thing, it could be probably not as big of a deal. That could be added. However, those things could be, if it is a paint solution, that could be done next spring. Once again, I think getting the blue panel up and the branding up would be fantastic, and that would, help facilitate them, operating and getting moving as a business in Columbus.
So when you were saying if you could get the temporary certificate of occupancy,
It would be contingent, and you can explain, Bill, this better than me, what the temporary certificate of occupancy allows you to do.
well, but I guess what I was asking is how long before you finish the redo of the glass front and Leon would have a chance to approve it? Because we wouldn't do a certificate of occupancy until he did that inspection, correct?
Correct.
So you can't do anything in terms of moving product in until that is completed, and is that 2 weeks?
He's waiting for you to approve this so he can go in and do the certificate of occupancy.
No, I think we're talking two different things.
But that's also contingent on your language with isn't it, with the TIF?
So as far as the building certificate of occupancy, the one thing that's outstanding that I understand today when I talked to the builder was that you had the plans, the glass plans were emailed to Leon yesterday, and the engineer stamped them, and then there was a fix. And there's bracing that has to be built
Sure.
inside the building in order to stabilize the windows against the wind load. When that's complete, then Leon will take the plans to make sure that it's built, the bracing is built as indicated on the engineer plans.
Correct.
So I think Councilmember Hegland's asking, how long will that take before Leon, how long will that bracing take for them to install? Is that a week project? Is that a 10-day project?
It's probably a week project.
So what I'm thinking is and then he will have to schedule an inspection. So we're probably looking at a week and a half to 2 weeks if everything goes well for him.
However, the blue panel, when we were at the planning commission meeting, the contractor did mention that if they could start scheduling that work and getting that going, that would be very helpful.
Are you talking about the blue paneling that has the name on it, right, on the one end?
That, and then
We have no
also
problem
on the
with that,
east
right?
side.
Well, so I think Elizabeth was asking them to hold off on that until we agreed on a design plan.
Right.
So, and what they're asking you today is,
Can they-
okay, you're okay with 3 sides of the building, can they put up the blue panel now, and so they can get their signage up?
Including the west elevation. So
yeah.
if that's part of their brand package,
Yeah.
it's been ordered, you might as well put that on the building because it's not going to take away from the issue where you want more contrast and perhaps other tones. So that can be done, the bracing can be done, a temporary C of O can be issued, and we can be back here in 2 weeks if council members are willing to work on it in the interim. You have a heavy load, so I don't want to suggest that for you.
And if that takes, 3 weeks or whatever, we're still moving, to an endpoint where they can get open and start operating as a business.
When you're talking about the blue panel, you're talking about the aluminum panel that has the sign on it. That says
That's
Fair
correct.
Home,
And then
correct?
also
Okay.
on the east face at the entryway, that,
His
okay.
brand on
Oh,
the east side.
On the
Yeah.
east side.
You're not talking about the 2 strips, right?
And just from
No.
Mr.
the 2
Mayor,
strips are out. That's officially out.
All right, thank you.
Band-Aids. The thing that I want to tell you, although, I've quoted the city planner about the city code, I will tell you that because this is a conditional use permit and the plans were submitted as part of a conditional use permit, you have more legal leverage over the conditional use permit than you do the certificate of occupancy. In other words, the C of O is tied to building code requirements, and so it's ministerial. The conditional use permit, on the other hand, as long as that's open, you can shut down a business. And so I just want you to understand that, all the cards haven't been played yet. And so I do think, as the planner has said, they are compliant with the city code. What they are not compliant with is what's in their conditional use permit. So you do have that as, if you're looking for a way to get this resolved, that's the potential hammer. And I'm not suggesting that the hammer has to fall, it just,
Right.
it just means that we have a further discussion until the council's ready to approve that application.
May I ask? However, there's still no certificate of occupancy because of the glass, correct?
Correct.
So they cannot move in a shoebox until that glass issue is,
Right, Leon had indicated that until the bracing is done for the windows, that in his opinion, the CO should not be issued.
And so.
So that's a
those
separate
things-
issue from the design.
Those could be detached. They could move in, they could run their business, and, you know, we have the legal leverage because the CUP is not in compliance to say until this is resolved, you don't have a compliant CUP.
because I don't want to lose the hammer.
Right. And I think that's a better way to bring this thing to a head than holding up a C of O when folks want to move in and get started with their operations. And if everybody, you know, on the council's comfortable with the blue branding, it can go forward regardless, because, you know, you have that discretion to approve that piece of it.
And I don't believe anyone on the council had an issue with the blue, with the oversized letters that we
No.
granted,
No.
with any of that. The issue is,
But I do want to say one thing, though, is, I think you said you're okay with 3 elevations. That's not true. I'm okay with the front elevation, and we have to talk about the other 3 elevations.
Because any change in the west elevation
Yes.
would carry through.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you're not going to just have that one wall that's parallel to the freeway and then leave the other 2 something different, I'm assuming.
Well, on the north side, that's designed so that that will be
Taken down when you.
taken down.
Right.
So to put up a lot of embellishment on the north side, I think would,
I would agree. We
Okay.
won't, we aren't going to do
the
that.
south side has mostly dock doors, which is a function of this
Yep.
building.
Yep, I've seen it.
So, and there is,
I just want to make, and I'm not saying that we change it, I just want to clarify that I'm not saying I'm okay with the other 3
so I think
elevations.
to help this discussion, it's just to move forward with the blue panel to get that installed, and the design issues we will be dealing with
Okay.
later, and the hammer is the CUP.
and also appreciate where we're coming from.
Yes.
None of this should have happened. If you'd come in March, like we told you, what Elizabeth and I met with you, and said, we want to look at this, we want to change it, we want white, we don't want gray. I mean, we spent a lot of hours beating our heads against the wall, driving around, looking at this, looking at that, on your behalf. And you're kind of projecting the feeling that we're responsible for this, and we're not. Or, I don't think I am, I don't think the rest of us are, because it could have all been settled when there was still snow on the ground, April or May. Anyway,
Yeah, no, apologize. We dropped the ball and
and you have, and we get it. But what we're trying to do is what's best for the approach to our city. I believe if whatever comes out of it's going to be better than the big white building with, it'll be better for you. And I'm just looking, everybody, please turn to this page.
That's the original, that's the original.
It's the front elevation, and it shows those hash marks going up the walls. Sorry, Elizabeth.
Yep.
What about something as simple as that? There's no number on my page, sorry. In the big packet. See how these,
So that would mean painting or doing something in the beveling between the panels, is what you're talking about? I think I have that.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's what.
Oh, I see. But they aren't. I mean,
He said they were.
That's all they did. I mean, I think these are panels too, and I think they just, You know what I mean? They made the lines darker and but
Those are actually, those are scored in the concrete, so that'd be pretty
Yeah.
difficult to do right now.
But aren't your panels 8x32?
Yes,
So you would have inherent horizontal lines.
no.
ev-
They,
built
they
it in?
would if you design them in and they, when they poured it, they
You
put them
designed
in.
them out.
You design them when they're in manufacturing.
Okay.
I think Councilmember Logren said it well, that it's not up to the council to design your building. It's up to you to get something that's approvable. So I think, you know, unless you want to provide more direction, I think that's pretty clear. An applicant proposes and the city approves. And so we've gotten some feedback, and
All right. So who wants to make the motion?
Holy smokes.
Or would you like to recap one for us so we can?
Sure. Mr. Mayor and Council, just offer a motion, I'll offer a motion for your consideration based on the discussion. First of all, the motion would continue the application for amendment of this conditional use permit for at least 2 weeks. We may go longer if there's still discussion, but, you know, as in the prior application, for at least 2 weeks. In the meantime, the building official would be directed to issue a temporary C of O when the glass issue is resolved, the bracing, and any other code issues. So those essentially will be detached. And then you would probably delegate to at least 2 council members the direct discussion with the applicant, if there's a willingness by the council to do that.
And I think the other thing they asked is to be able to move forward with the blue panel. with
And,
the
oh, right, correct, thank you.
And the branding on,
branding on it.
Right.
So moved.
Second.
Want to get on that committee?
Got the land.
Oh. I know
I kind of know who's going to be on that committee.
to be on that committee.
Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
And that would include any commitments that you've made regarding landscaping to date.
correct.
Yep.
All right. So now,
Will you get back to us then, who we need to contact
Yes.
for the next steps? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't know which pictures. We,
I think you should be on it. We need to get a guy's,
Get a business to
and I don't.
those are the pictures. These I'll keep because I think I think this is what they thought was sumac, but they're not. These are ornamental trees and whatever. That's what I thought.
You want to be?
Okay. I think they got those.
Barb has to finish.
Barb, is there more?
Yeah.
not much, but some.
Thanks.
After all of the public hearings, Dean Johnson had a presentation for the Planning Commission on the Northeast Quad High-Density Mixed-Use District draft of the ordinance review. So I didn't write all that down, because we've all heard it a number of times.
All right. That was it for the night?
That's it.
All right.
That's enough, right?
That was a pretty challenging one to summarize. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for a thorough job.
Kind of like some of those motions.
All right, now we're moving on to number 11, public open forum. Anyone here for public open forum? Number 12 has been removed, so we'll go to letter D, staff and consultant reports, engineer report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll try to be brief.
Thank
I would like to just revisit the topic that was brought up at the EDA meeting of the applying for the grant to the DNR for the State Parks Road Account Program. If we just get a motion to that effect to direct engineering to do that, if that's okay.
Do we need a motion, or can we just direct him to do it?
You need a motion because it's an application, so they're going to look for approval, that it was approved by the council.
Okay.
I said so move.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
And then just a couple quick updates. Hornsby Street realignment is continuing, full steam ahead, weather dependent or not. There's one item we need to work out, and that is, they had started on the turn lane on 97 and left that to work on Hornsby Street while we're working out some of the deeper muck excavation items that I mentioned, so that still needs to be worked out to determine if that can be done yet this year, or if they'll delay that till next year. And we're looking at a couple different options for that.
Dennis, can you talk about the project originally was supposed to end at November 1st, so I don't know that council knows that the project's not going to quite meet the deadline, meaning the overall project, bridge project.
The design build project. I was actually out there today talking to, forget his name, the Schaefer batch plant rep. He said they're pulling out in 2 to 3 weeks. They're done, meaning the bridge is going to be done.
Oh, okay,
So there's conflicting information because I get 2 stories as well.
okay.
Elizabeth's referring to the fact that at a meeting last week, there was discussion about maybe the bridge isn't going to be done. I don't know if it'll all be, if the full diverging diamond permanent geometrics will be done, but the concrete will be poured for the bridge. So what I don't know is, will the full diverging diamond be open for the winter, or will it be 2 lanes like it is now? I'm guessing or hoping it's the whole thing, but
Does that mean, Dennis, the sidewalk will be done? I thought that's what they said at that meeting, that it wasn't going to be done, correct? Right. But you're saying you think it will be done?
that I didn't get an update on.
But if he pulls his batch plant out, they just fill it with,
Yeah, the pathway, I believe, is bituminous.
between, over the freeway?
No, that's in the middle, that's
right.
basically done. So if you drive through there now, you'll see 2 barricades in the middle with about 14 feet in between, that's the pathway.
And that's finished?
That's done. The middle of the bridge.
Well, I thought that's what they weren't going to do.
It was either that I remember, or the diverging diamond, the center bit that actually goes over the bridge.
Yeah,
part.
the 2 approaches as you get to the diverging diamonds, it crosses you over. And that might not all be done before the snow flies.
All right.
But as far as the actual concrete being poured, today he said they're planning on being out of there in 2 or 3 weeks. But there's still permanent signals to go up. It's temporary right now. I don't know if that's going to get done or not as well. I'll try to get a better update for the next meeting. Our project on going from, on 97, going east of Hornsby, might end up remaining like it is right now, where there's 2 lanes pushed over, depending on that turn lane progress, which would tie into whatever the design build will coordinate with them for traffic control over the winter. Still on the plan is to get Hornsby Street North done and opened up to traffic. That's assuming we can keep construction going into November. And I just wanted to bring up one last item, was Hornsby Street South. I know we've talked about that one a bit. I think we were directed last time to get some quotes for wetland delineations. We reached out to 2 local firms. We heard a response from one, and the cost was quite reasonable, so we're planning on just going ahead with that. And we still would like, if that's a project the city is considering doing next year or the following year, we'd still like authorization or direction to get the field survey done this fall. So if that's something we could proceed with as well.
So the wetland delineation is constricted by time, correct? October 15th or something.
Yeah, late October.
But how about the field survey? Can that be later?
It can be later, just
That's not dependent.
you want it before there's snow on the ground, otherwise it takes extra effort.
Okay.
So, we have another meeting or 2, we could probably, hopefully,
Before that, so must.
decide on that.
Right, we'll wait on that. Anything else?
That's it.
Attorney's report.
Mayor and Council, I'm going to hand out a resolution I have to hand it out because it was drafted this evening.
Hot off the presses.
So I apologize for that, but I'll be happy to walk you through it so you understand what you're considering this evening. This is a resolution of denial of the interim use permit and variance for the Arndt application for the ponds. And so at your last meeting, you directed the city attorney to prepare the resolution. And since the 60-day rule is running out October 15th, we need to consider this evening. So I'll just walk through it since I just handed it out. The first part of the resolution identifies the sections of the city code that were in the staff report, so that should be somewhat familiar. The next part of the resolution identifies the hearings held at the Planning Commission and the discussions at the City Council. And then it goes through the findings on page 2 for denial of the interim use, or the variance first. And then the last page identifies the findings related to the interim use permit. They primarily relate to the impact on minor roadways and residential roadways, but also addresses the minimization of the impacts on neighboring properties and the loss of buildable upland acreage in the city. So all of these points were raised at the Planning Commission, were raised again at the council discussion. We just memorialized them here so they're part of the record if there's any challenge to this action.
Very good. I have one question. My name is misspelled. Do I sign it incorrectly, or do I change my name by morning?
We'll change the name by morning.
We'll fix that. And that'll only happen once. Although I think I've seen it misspelled twice, so.
Several different ways.
We'll certainly get that fixed.
What's the resolution number?
That'd be 1927.
Oh, can I ask a question? Because one thing that's not in here, and maybe that's purposeful, is the discussion we had about the conflicting uses, the use that was proposed in the Rice Creek watershed versus the use that was proposed here. So that's not in here.
We can add that.
Can
if
we
you'd like.
add that?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So just for the record, and we'll update the resolution before it's signed, the applicant stated that it was commercial in I believe, the Rice Creek
Yes.
application, and that it was residential, personal use.
Recreational.
Recreational in the application here at the city. So there was essentially misinformation.
Thank you.
Does that impact then your number 1 about the landowner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner?
Those statements come out of the code, so those are we're not saying that. This is a recital of the type of findings in the code. So this is lifted out of the city code. We're not saying that they.
That he did?
Right.
Okay.
In fact, we're saying
Okay.
that they did not meet that requirement. But I would certainly will update the resolution, and we can adopt it tonight and finalize it. You can adopt it tonight.
Okay.
Jeff, you'd like to make?
Resolution 1927, a resolution denying a variance from the City of Columbus side yard setback requirements, denial of an application for interim use permit for mineral extraction.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, we're done with that.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Counselor?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Mayor and city council members report. Denny?
I have nothing.
Mine can wait till next time.
Nothing?
I wanted to just make sure that we have something, a red flag or something about the billboard update, because those are coming up, and we had talked about them bringing back standards for the base of the billboards, and I haven't heard anything, and I'm worried because aren't they coming up for renewal?
So the deadline was October 4th
Uh-oh.
for them to give us, feedback. And so at the next planning commission meeting, that for the 18th is where Ben put a presentation together of all of their comments.
Okay.
Because we gave them a month's deadline in order to do that.
That's all.
And you did get several replies? Or one or two,
Ben said he got replies. I don't know if there were several, but he got replies.
right? I have something, but I can't remember what it is, and I didn't write it down, so we'll move on to Elizabeth.
We
No,
call
I'm
a
sorry.
special-
Public Works.
Jesse, we
Public-
call a special meeting later if you want.
Public Works is not here.
Also, Mr. Mayor, did you want to see if there are at least two council members who want to talk
Yep, that was
about the
it.
Bear Homes?
Who wants to volunteer? Jeff?
I think,
Yeah, I think, yeah, we'll go with the.
Shelley?
One of our dear,
I'll do it.
Janet
yeah,
and Shelley.
we'll do it.
And Janet?
Yep. Happy to.
I don't want it, guys.
Number 17, Public Information Coordinator's Report.
Yeah, I have an update on the sale of the Haggard Park land. The title review is essentially completed, and I think that we're at a point where we could call for a neighborhood meeting. In the background, while we are preparing for the neighborhood meeting, we'd like to get an appraisal on the property to understand the market value, and we'd also like to get an updated survey. There is a county ditch that runs through the south chunk of the property, so we'd like to update the survey to recognize that. And then the neighborhood meeting would just be kind of a meeting of the minds to talk about the road easement that is required and the cul-de-sac and what's happening with the land. So if we were looking at a calendar, sorry, my calendar's on my phone. I would like to go into November and recommend either November 12th or November 19th, a Tuesday evening. Usually neighborhood meetings are at 6 o'clock.
I would prefer the 12th, I believe.
Okay.
Does anyone know they have a conflict?
The 12th or what?
19.
Of November, or the 19th, yeah. Tuesday nights are good for my schedule personally.
Even.
Okay. And we would invite residents that live on Volga Street, is essentially what it's called. So,
Anybody that surrounds the property or is adjoins that property.
yep. November 12th?
Fine. That works
Okay.
for me.
Do we need
6
a,
PM.
yep,
So there
Here.
would be a motion to call for a neighborhood meeting on November 12th for the Haggard Park discussion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in
Denny.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anything else, Jessica?
nope, that's it, thank you.
All right, we are moving right along. Elizabeth?
In looking at the items that I have on the agenda, I have two items. The first one is, we seem to have had a problem on the calendar of meetings that was published. When I talked to Lori today, for some reason Lori thought the third week of November was Thanksgiving instead of the fourth week. And initially, I thought maybe the meetings weren't moved, but what really happened is the Planning Commission meeting is now on a Monday, which is November 18th, and the council meeting is being held on November 25th, which is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And so in the calendar of meetings, that's how it's currently published. And what it really should say is that the Planning Commission meeting is on November 18th. I'm sorry, November 13th.
No.
It's November 20th, I should have my glasses on. November 20th, it now says November 18th, which is a Monday.
Correct.
And it has your meeting, November 27th, and it should have said November 25th. Historically, we've either met the Monday or Tuesday before Thanksgiving, but we haven't held it on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So I'd like to correct the calendar, both for the Planning Commission meeting and the council meeting.
So
The Planning Commission is going to be the regular 20th, and then our meeting on the 27th will be the 25th.
And I'm proposing the 25th, which is a Monday. It could be Tuesday, either day, but historically, we've never had it on that Wednesday.
And was there a workshop before that, on that day?
That would have been a workshop, that would have
That's
been a
what I had it
workshop
down as.
meeting.
So you'd have to move the workshop to Monday, too.
It would be the workshop also.
So it could be a workshop, or workshop could be, not held because of the holiday. We have the option yet.
Yes.
All right. I prefer Monday instead of Tuesday, just because it's farther away from the holiday.
Yeah,
Anyone have
me
any
too.
problems with Monday?
25th.
Yep.
It works.
All right. So would someone like to make the motion? You have to make the whole motion for the planning commission and the city council.
Do we want to include the workshop?
Oh, and you include the workshop too, yeah.
So I move to approve moving the city council meeting and the workshop from 11/27/19 to 11/25/19, and the planning commission meeting on 11/18/19 to 11/20/19.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right.
The second item that I have on the planning commission agenda, I've talked with several of the planning commission members, and I've also been to several of the meetings, and I think throughout the past couple of months, the planning commission has been doing a fabulous job with doing their due diligence, going out to sites, looking at different items. There's been a whole host of questions, and I think that we've been able to answer those questions, but I think that the entire planning commission hasn't gotten the benefit of discussion on answers on those questions because they've come individually or called individually. And so I think it's worked not so much against them, because I think we've taken the time to walk through them, but everyone didn't really get the benefit of all the answers or the questions. And so I was trying to think about a way that we could get a format that we would be able to answer those questions and everyone be able to listen to the answers so that we could move forward in a more effective way. And so there's a couple of different options. Years ago, we had the format where we had, the planning commission meets 24 times a year, whereas in other communities, they just meet once a month. And you're on the planning commission agenda, whatever day that is, and then it goes to council. And so the original format when I first came was that the planning commission set up two so that they could have a public hearing on the first meeting or the second meeting of the month, and then discussion on the second meeting. So they weren't really holding up the application. They just had an extra 2 weeks to think about, the input from the public hearing, and then answer any questions in between, or have staff bring back more information that they heard from the public hearing. So again, that could be one option. The second option I thought about was perhaps we could, and I know that Ben's here now and I'm here before the meeting, and perhaps maybe we should have an hour's worth of workshop beforehand, and not so much in the hour beforehand, because the 15 minutes before the meeting, we really do need to set up and get underway for that particular meeting. So we could set up that when we have new applications where we know that there's going to be some questions, that we can hold a workshop, and we would publish the workshop an hour before so that everyone has the benefit of answering questions. And I realize it would be a short time before, but I think some of those questions, it would be beneficial for all the members to have that opportunity to ask those questions. We might not have all the answers, but that might trigger, maybe then we would continue that conversation, or we would be able to maybe get that information in between. So I offer that to the council if they felt that that was a good direction to go into. We could also talk at the planning commission level to see if they're receptive to that idea or ideas.
I am not against it, because I think at the last planning commission meeting, at the end of it, there was some feeling that it could have gone smoother, could have gone better. But again, there are so many questions to everything that they have to deal with and everything we have to deal with, that I would say go ahead and talk to them about it and see how they feel. If nobody thinks they want to spend the extra half hour, that's fine. I don't think that'll be the case. I think people would be interested to be informed as much as they can to make the best decisions they can. Shall I? Anybody have anything to add? Well, there's so many issues and they're so complicated, and I believe everybody wants to do what's right for the applicants and for the city. I think it's worth a half hour twice a week, twice a month.
Okay.
So talk to them and ask them what they want at the
Okay.
next meeting. Anything else, Elizabeth?
I have nothing further.
All right. There's a planning commission meeting on October 16th. The month is nearly half over at 7 PM. Calendar of meetings is on the back. Would someone make a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do
Thank
we
you,
have to make a
everyone.
motion for that, and we didn't?
Adjourn or for?
No, this,
Or you have to stay overnight? What?
What is it?
approve the workshop. We didn't do that. Do we have to make a motion?
Not today.
No, you mean the planning?
Because it was written out here. I mean, if it's in
Oh.
green, man, I'm doing it.
I asked you to-
Green is go.
Like Pavlov's dog.
Put it on the